Just first of all, start by asking your general report, good and bad points.
Well, the bad points first. The bad points are clearly mainly about performance management, that we have been slow to develop our performance management culture. The good points are that it is perfectly clear that the Council is doing many things very well. It's working well with its communities, it's working well with its community planning partners, it's basically providing a sound service for the public.
You talked about having a good relationship with staff and good industrial relations, but the report does mention that little attention has been paid to staff morale due to the problems with performance management, the problems with making budget savings. Has left the staff with very low morale. Appears to contradict this good relationship that you have with the staff. Well,
you can only work on what actually comes bubbling up to the top. My impression of the staff is that we need to look after them, of course we do, but at the same stage they are in the process of providing excellent services for people. They go out on a day-to-day basis and they provide good services for people. Nobody goes out in order to provide something bad. And my feeling is that you put your finger right on it. We have been so busy in the past, running round after every last penny, last pound, that we have, in some senses, neglected to look after the important bits of staff care.
This report was mainly based on best value. Do you think that there's been money wasted within the council, that we're not getting best value for our local council in this area?
No, there's actually no indication in the report that that is suggested. What we are not good at is actually indicating how we are doing that process. In other words, we are not good at comparing and contrasting different ways of providing services. And that's what comes through quite clearly. Now, that of course does take a bit of effort, and not to say also some cash if it's on a big best value review. That obviously does require resource, which is then taken away from other things. I'm the first to accept the fact that we have been firefighting, and I suspect probably the performance management side of things does actually fall by the wayside while you are actually delivering services on the front line.
Mm-hmm. And how long is this process going to take to fix these problems? Are we talking weeks, months, years, possibly longer than that?
Much really will depend upon how quickly we can get through the Accounts Commission's views and their plan and their suggestions. I don't see that this should take actually a particularly long time at all. It's really much more to do with changing a culture and an understanding amongst members and staff that they must ask certain questions. You'll have gathered from the report that it's also a question of information flowing to us. And there is an argument which says that in fact we haven't been receiving the information which would allow us to make the necessary comparisons, to know that people are getting good value services. I have no doubt, in fact, that on the whole we are providing good ones, but we must be able to evidence it.
Would you start by asking your general thoughts on the report?
Well, as I said earlier, I think all 47 councillors are a bit disappointed in the report. It doesn't tell us anything that we didn't know, because we did our self-assessment and we knew that we had weaknesses, but it's still, when you see it in black and white, it is a bit of a disappointment.
Mm-hmm. The report, criticising management, does criticise councillors as well. Talks about a lack of scrutiny. It said that a survey showed that 40% believed opportunities for scrutiny were limited. Why is that? Why is there no scrutiny in councillors, which is one of your main roles?
Our service committees have a scrutiny role, and I think that the service committees carry out that very well. We also have a scrutiny committee that has been strengthened this administration as well, and I think that we are now carrying out that role far, far better than we did in the past. Certainly when I became a councillor at first, which was a number of years ago, the scrutiny role was simply confined to service committees, and it was a much wider role now that we have. We also have a professional development plan for each councillor now that is something we didn't have before, and we have training in the various aspects of the role that we've to perform. So I do think that, although that is a criticism, I think that we are well pleased to take it forward and to improve on it.
Just talking about scrutiny, it does mention that there's a lack of challenge to the performance of the council's significant training organisation by councillors such as combined services. Is that a problem even good?
It isn't. I mean, I've sat in combined services when it was combined services, and now I really don't think it is. I think that it has a problem because of the overspends that it brings in. But I think that they are now, it's identified that that is purely in home care and in refuse collection. And I think if we can get our budgets right, that will improve in time.
Until this council administration is prepared to accept the legitimate role of the opposition to scrutinise and hold it to account, and it will continue to show contempt for the electorate. The second immediate action the administration must take is to agree to allow a new chief executive to implement the management structure they believe is right, not inherit when being implemented by a chief executive who has announced he is leaving. The report states at point 39 the absence of clear political and managerial direction means that the council is embarking on changes in the way it conducts its business, which are not underpinned by sufficient understanding or agreement. It also states at point 38 the chief executive has led the management of change since 2002, but this has largely focused on meeting budget challenges and restructuring the organisation, rather than on providing a clear vision for the organisation and working to achieve it. The current chief executive has indicated that it wishes to leave, and no one has opposed that decision. It should therefore be the role of the new chief executive to take the management of change forward. A football team whose manager is leaving wouldn't be asked by the board of directors to bring in a new team and structure and then burden the new manager with their predecessor's decisions. But that is exactly what this administration is doing with this council. By doing so, they are showing utter contempt for Audit Scotland report. The third immediate action we would urge is for the council to announce a full review headed by a new chief executive into the council's failure at performance management. This review should set out the management structure the new chief executive wishes to see in place, but clearly that must be aligned to driving improvements in performance. The people of Dumfries and Galloway are currently being shortchanged. As this report states, in Dumfries and Galloway Council, performance often lags behind those of other councils, and the rate of improvement is slower than in many other places. Whilst there is plenty of debate on how much the level of cuts should be in the council this year, £3.9 million, as I said earlier, there is no debate on scrutinising these cuts. There is very little debate on how we make best use of the £300 million or so the council does have to spend, and crucially there is very little debate, if any, on how the council can improve performance. The suggestions above and many others could of course have been made if today it was held to discuss this damning report. The Labour Group, in fact, every councillor needs to be given an opportunity to play its part in making the change happen at Audit Scotland, and it will resume after next week the Accounts Commission so rightly demand. Today we have been denied that opportunity, and you have been fed the expected spin in the administration begging with you to focus on the sort of positives in this report, in the hope that you will ignore the real message. This is burying a case in the sand again. The Labour Group showed recently during the budget setting process that we will work together for the benefit of people in Dumfries and Galloway, and will put forward constructive proposals at every opportunity, but the acceptance of our budget proposals came at the 11th hour, as administration had refused to discuss their budget with us in advance of the meeting. That attitude has to end, and it has to end now.